What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with Genfinity, interviewing a multitude of builders across Web3. We have a legendary panel up here with us today. We have Dom and Phil from EasyA. EasyA is building out their application is like pretty amazing as far as onboarding into this space. And I think before we get into the weeds from the Algorand perspective here, I think maybe we let Dom and Phil, if you could give maybe an intro of yourselves, tell us about your role within EasyA. Just kind of a broad overview of the platform that you guys have built here to onboard users, developers, and enterprises, et cetera, into Web3. I'll start with you, Phil.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us on, Solomon. This is an awesome show, and it's a pleasure to be here with our friends over at Algorand too. But yeah, kicking it off with Phil and Dom. Dom and I are actually brothers, so we co-founded EasyA together. I'll let Dom do his own intro in a moment. But yeah, started off born in the UK in London, so hence the accent. Really, my first foray into the space was in 2013 through Bitcoin mining. That's how I originally got in. So started mining all of the different altcoins as well at the time. So like Feathercoin, Litecoin, Primecoin as well. Really, really exciting time. And Dom and I co-founded EasyA a little bit after our working lives. So I did my undergrad at Cambridge. I was very fortunate to win a scholarship out to Cambridge University, where I read law, qualified as an attorney in New York. And then afterwards, we co-founded EasyA together. And for anybody who doesn't know EasyA, we are like Duolingo, but for blockchain. So we allow anybody at the push of a few buttons to get started learning about the world's leading chains. And we've had an amazing run of projects. Projects coming out of EasyA, and our hackathons are now valued at over $3.5 billion. So huge value. We're honored to have some of the brightest minds in Web3 and even in the world just coming into our community. But yeah, Dom is my brother, and he went over to the US a little bit earlier than me to UPenn for university.
Dom,
Cool,
I'd love it. Go for it, Dom.
Yeah, thanks, Phil, for the introduction. Like Phil mentioned, I'm his brother. I did my undergrad at the University of Pennsylvania out in the States, where I studied finance at Wharton, and then I went to go work in finance actually afterwards. So I worked at Blackstone in private equity, and then I was also one of the first hires at Travis Kalanick's new startup, Cloud Kitchens. So he founded Uber originally, one of the original founders of Uber, and then after a decade or so left to found his new startup, Cloud Kitchens, which specializes in ghost kitchens. That was a really fun time, really enjoyed that, and really sort of, learned about how to get people excited about building companies and really sort of, starting their own startups. And obviously, that's been helpful for Phil and my journeys over the last couple of years, but now obviously in the daily work that we do at all the hackathons, inspiring people to actually build their own Web3 startups, it's more important than ever. So we're really excited to be pushing the forefront of innovation in blockchain Web3. We host, tons of amazing hackathons, and we'll touch on that later, of course. And obviously, the app's been a huge inspiration for many people to get into blockchain, crypto, start building their first applications in the space, and even for just regular consumers and people who maybe thinking about investing in certain projects. It's been a great way for them to actually understand the tech so that they could make more informed decisions. So EasyA has really grown into a huge platform, and the number one way that people actually learn about the world's top projects. So we like to say that when a blockchain lists in the EasyA app, it's one of the most important times in their history, and it's really proven to be true. So many blockchains have launched on EasyA and really just seen a huge spike in developer activity. But we can touch on that later and obviously talk about what we're going to be doing with Algorand.
Yeah, 100%. No, and let me preface to the audience here. You see a lot of buffering. There are buffering issues today for the first time, so I apologize, but I'm sure this won't be the last time that we get the EasyA team on. I know how difficult everybody's schedules are to align. It seems like audio is good, so we're going to kind of roll with this. One thing before we move into from the Algorand standpoint, I know we have Victor here with us as well. I was looking through. It's been awesome to kind of watch the EasyA journey. I remember back in 2024, kind of looking at the platform that you guys had built. I forget what hackathon you were doing. I want to say it was a Polkadot hackathon at Consensus 2024, maybe, or I could be wrong there, but I was looking this
Multi-chain.
morning. Was it? What was it?
Multi-chain, so lots of different chains.
Okay, so it was multi-chain in 2024. So I was looking this morning. What I love is that it really takes a comprehensive approach. So like, you know, as you get further into kind of some of the challenges within the application, you start learning about some of the development activities, things like that. But at the onset, you're basically just learning about, the basis of the network. So one of the integrations that you guys had recently announced, which was Flare Networks, you guys like gave a really cool backdrop and story of the founder, Hugo Filion, and then you kind of get a little reward and you can continue on your journey. And that's spread across a select number of chains, leading blockchain networks throughout the world. And I think that this is a good point maybe to pivot over to Victor and tell us a little bit about why we have the EasyA team here with us today.
Hello, friends. Nice to meet you all. My name is Victor. I am working at Algorand Foundation since April. So it's been almost 2 months and a half, although it feels like a few years. And well, to be honest, it's kind of exciting because I know EasyA also from their Polkadot times, because I used to work at Polkadot. I've been working in other Web3 companies as well, like Chaining or Polygon. And funny enough, Solomon, I'd say that the world is multi-chain, truly multi-chain. Like the more people I know, the more people I see that they try to fit the right use case for the right place. So there is no such a thing like one tool to rule them all. Unfortunately or fortunately, you never know, right? But that's kind of really interesting. And when I was talking to Dom the other day, we were discussing exactly like what's going on with the founders. And Algorand founder is such a unique case because, in most of the companies, the founder is very deeply involved, right? Like they basically, I don't want to say dictate, but they tell a lot of the story. While Algorand is very unique also in the founders view as well. Like, Silvio, back in the day, he created the concept of CK proofs, which we all use. Again, I've been working in Polygon, and, CK proofs were kind of the bread and butter for the last 2 years. And Silvio, what he did, and I think it's very smart, he came with the idea, he came with the technology, he put all the pieces in place, and then he gave the freedom to the foundation and to the board to basically make the technology as good as it can be. And therefore, he has this kind of research aura that really, really impregnates the whole technology. And I think that's very, very exciting, to be honest.
100%. No, and I would love if you could maybe walk us through what the EasyA platform is going to represent into the Algorand ecosystem today, because I think that this is kind of the first. I think there's been, so for those that kind of quasi deep dive across X and Twitter, I always enjoy seeing the EasyA account kind of engage with some of the leading blockchain networks, and there was kind of a teaser tweet reply a little while ago, but I think that you guys actually have locked in something as far as integration is concerned. Victor, if you could maybe talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
So when we were actually thinking, how can we explain what Algorand does? And we tried to do a lot of things, Solomon. We tried to, start from very basic things, like start from scratch. And Camilo and Sarah are doing an amazing job with the master classes, like try to explain from the very basic, what is a blockchain for, and so on and so forth. But at some point, we realized we can only reach to a certain level. And then when it comes into education, I am a truly fan of what EasyA does, because they make very engaging videos. They try to look at different angles and think out of the box. So when you go to any of their existing courses, again, you mentioned Polkadot before, but there are also other courses. They are very engaging and they really catch your attention. And they really make you think, what can I do with my problem using their technology? So when we had the opportunity to collaborate in Gulsa, which is one of my peers, and we were brainstorming, what can we do? What cannot we do? And one of the angles we really want to explore was how can we introduce Algorand to a broader audience? How can we make Algorand appealing for people that may think, oof, this is one of the OGs, Is it still alive? Is it still relevant? Oh my goodness, you know what? I tried Algorand 4 years ago, and I still remember the pain in the neck that Teal was. Yeah, they tried this thing called Teal, what? But then we made a huge investment, Solomon. Like, we've been working very hard. John Woods, which was our CTO, he was really working his ass towards making this more usable by normal developers. And therefore, we came for support for Python and TypeScript. They are both two of the most popular languages, because of course there is Rust. I've been trying to learn Rust for the last 2 years. I'm still a rookie wannabe. You know, I'm in technical marketing, so I'm not a very good developer. That goes always first. But Python and TypeScript, they are very easy to use. So when we were discussing with Dom, we were like, well, we have this Python, we have this TypeScript, and it's really easy and it's really sexy. And, you know, for people that are really want to get into blockchain, there must be a way we can make this engaging. And they were like, yeah, say no more. Like, we have tons of ideas, and we were brainstorming. We shared a lot of content we have inside. And sometimes one of my problems, especially as tech marketer, is like, oh, I think this is important. Oh, but this is also important. Oh, this is also important. And when everything is important, nothing is important. And one of the things I really value from EasyA point of view is their ability of extracting the things that really, really, really matters. And when you are so obsessed with your technology and what you're doing, sometimes it's very hard that the tree doesn't allow you to see the forest. And they see so many trees, and they can tell you with no problem, yeah, nah, that's not very interesting. Or the other way around, like, oh, that's very unique. Like, one of the things I'm very bullish is, oh, coming from Ethereum, there are many things I don't need the smart contract for. Like, I don't need the smart contract to define an asset. And they were like, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, we can work with that. And, you know, we should use them as a guinea pig in the way that, well, you think this is interesting, this is not interesting. And again, being based in the space for, I don't know how many years, and being part of the OGs, they really are able to tell you, oh, this is completely BS, or, okay, we like this because this is actually meaningful for the people we interact with.
100%. No, I'm curious from Phil and Dom's standpoint with the integrations that you guys currently have, and now obviously Algorand coming as well. You have within the application Solana, Stacks, Flare, Polkadot, Stellar, Sui, Aptos, Scroll, Immutable X, XRPL. Algorand obviously imminent. What type of overlap do you guys see? Because I think Victor brings up a really good point. I think in Web3 blockchain, we see a lot of kind of natural echo chambers that start to develop, and you really do end up just kind of zooming into your own ecosystem, which, yeah, it's great. You should be zoomed into your own ecosystem and building that out, but you could potentially be missing other innovative ideas that are going on across, you know, different networks, and then potentially bring those back, you know, some of those ideas, or make them work within your own ecosystem to scale out your own network. What type of overlap do you see between users, which there's tons of users on your guys' application, between these different networks? Is there quite a bit of overlap and different people kind of testing out different things from what you're finding?
That's a really good question, Solomon. And, you know, first of all, thank you, Victor, for sharing as well a little bit more about the philosophy behind EasyA. I think you hit the nail on the head there. As Victor said, we're very much firm believers in the fact that the world is multi-chain. And I think that most people have come to that consensus as well. So really what we like to do in the EasyA app, and the reason that we've had so much success, is because very early on, we were adherents to that overall vision. And that vision has obviously played out big time. So in the EasyA app, what we do is we allow users to explore these ecosystems. And so to your point, there are two things. Number one, it's about telling that story. So for Algorand, and this is something which we've had the pleasure of chatting about together with Victor, Camilla, and also Sarah and Gulsha on the team it's finding that story and that narrative which really fits developers. And most importantly as well, what is it that would attract a developer to Algorand? And so there's a number of really cool developments. I'm sure we'll touch on them at some point, like, of course, Algo kit, like Victor mentioned, with TypeScript as well. So it's really what we're doing right now is refreshing developers' memories about Algorand. I think, you know, everybody knows about Algorand or has heard of it in some respect or other, but the development experience was at one point very different. So I remember when we actually, a couple of years ago now, had an Algorand track at one of our hackathons, and a lot of developers were really, I don't want to say struggling, but they were having an interesting time with Teal. And so that was an interesting experience for them, of course. So it's really about updating that knowledge. And to your point about like the interplay between them, what we typically see is, because we are so open and genuinely honest about different networks and what they are good for, what their particular use case is what we find is that developers come to EasyA, they start learning about the networks, and then what happens is once they find the one that really resonates with them, that resonates with their vision, they like the language, for example, then what they do is they tend to stick with that ecosystem. So then they go deeper, they'll come to an EasyA hackathon, and well, no spoilers yet, but that's also down on the roadmap together with EasyA and Algorand. They then launch and they then build an ecosystem. So that's typically what we see. That's the journey that we see from coming in the EasyA app, exploring those ecosystems, and then joining one. And typically that's where we see them start to launch and really just become really, really core parts of those ecosystems.
I think one of the interesting things on my end, and Camilo, I've ran into Camilo the past 2 years in a row. And I'm always amazed because, you can go to like these very crypto-centric events, which are certainly extremely important. And they're showcasing kind of all of the crazy amounts of innovation that are going on across the space. I know that Phil and Dom were just at Apex, which was, a massive event for all intents and purposes, and looked great. But I went to PyCon, which is kind of the annual Python summit, both of the past 2 years. And, you see the Bloombergs of the world, and you see, Facebook, which is now Meta, and you see all these, kind of giant entities. I'll tell you, last year when I went, Camilo and Victor and Sarah, I was like, I had no idea what to expect because I've never been to a Python summit. There was no blockchain representation there at all, except for Algorand. And I was like, this is crazy that nobody else is here. And then long story short, I went back again this year and there was no blockchain representation at all, except for Algorand. And I'm like, talk about low-hanging fruit. I mean, capitalizing on the opportunity here. But Victor, I'd love if you could tell us where Algorand exceeds from a technology standpoint, making that kind of developer experience easy. The reason that you guys updated AlgoKit 2.0 with Python last year and AlgoKit 3.0 with TypeScript this year, and why it's so important to kind of open up the developer languages for all the world's developers that are certainly not here yet. I mean, millions and millions of developers just not here yet.
Yeah, I fully agree. And also, first and foremost, kudos to the DevRel team led by Brian. They tend to go also to these conferences, and they do a tremendous job together with Camilo. This year, he was also at PyCon, and he loved it. He will explain that later, hopefully. But I fully agree. Those places, they are a wonderful entry point for those developers that they already know a language. They have some problem. And funny enough, Solomon, and we were talking the other day, Camille and I, and also another peer of us called David Rojas, many developers today, they have this question. If I have a database, do I still need blockchain? Are they overlapping? Are like either one of the other? Are they both? And this is one of the icebreaker conversation we have in some of these developers. And I think it's one of the reasons, because Algorand, the technology, it's so impactful. And from the developer point of view, it's so straightforward. In other L1s or L2s, you need to explain some things like finality, block time. Like, since I hit enter, how long does it take for the transaction to get processed? If you are coming for a traditional development world, you just inject the data in the database, and that's it. You shouldn't forget. While in blockchain, you have all these concepts of, well, there is this idea of a fork, there can be a rollback. Well, there is a reorg. What is a reorg? So from the database point of view, a reorg has a completely different meaning. And therefore, explaining these concepts in the blockchain space is kind of a struggle. So when it comes into the technology stack at the Algorand Foundation, we thought, okay, what can we do to make this a little bit more appealing for developers? And you're right, Python was great. It's wonderful. As a language, it's really, really powerful. But some people were like, well, but Python and Solidity are sometimes very different. And Python, it's usually seen as a backend language And some people were like, what if we also had the ability to use a more frontal language? And we were looking out there, we were experimenting with other languages, and we made the decision, the conscious decision of supporting TypeScript. The version of TypeScript we support from Algorand is very straightforward. Like in Python, there are a few tweaks we need to do. Like other blockchains, whenever they support Rust, they need to make some adjustments, like removing the multi-threads and sometimes creating some classes that are unique. But in TypeScript, it was like one-to-one conversion. And that's one of the reasons, because we updated AlgoKit 2.0 to 3.0. The other thing we also introduced, and I know Camilo is a huge fan, is the SDK. And the reason for that is because as a developer, sometimes you are used to use SDKs or libraries. Like, why do I need to do everything from scratch if you already have a set of predefined tasks or tools that you can be actually consuming? That's what we had also in the mindset. And Camilo has a wonderful demo during one of his master classes where he is leveraging AI. And sorry for the spoiler, but he's leveraging AI and by coding and actually creating an MVP out of nothing. And that is possible because Algorand technology allows you to do so. If you were using any other L2 or L1, you need to consider, oh, I want to use an asset. Therefore, I need to create the asset definition following any standard. Oh, I want to use an NFT. Therefore, I need to import my NFT contract and secure it and audit and so on and so forth. While in places like Algorand, you want it, you use it. It's very straightforward. There is even a whole website that one of the peers put together when the tools where you can actually play and interact with all the different things you can do without needing any smart contract. So as a developer, what do you really need? You need a powerful SDK. You need some kind of local environment, although here we have different perspectives on what is an ideal local environment when it comes into blockchain. You can run this locally. That's AlgoKit, which uses Docker, and you will create like your very own compressed within your computer version of the Algorand blockchain. You have testnet, you have mainnet, and each of us, we have our preferences there, right? Like where to deploy. But AlgoKit basically streamlines the install of that. And therefore, when what else do you need as a developer? You need some tooling. Okay, we got you. We have AlgoKit, Algo SDK. You have all these functionalities. And what else do you need? You also need a strong documentation, which has been one of the works we've been having for the last year. So in terms of documentation, we released a new version of the developer portal, which is dev.algorand.co. This new version also includes some examples, which was one of the things that people were claiming for the last X number of years. Like, where can we get more information? Where can we get more examples? Please give us inspiration. And we're also working on a learning hub together with Camilo and Sarah to make it also more affordable for developers. And as I was mentioning before, this is great, but how can we add more people? Well, that's why the partnership with EasyA is so important, because despite all these efforts, we are putting the information there, but how can you consume this information? How can you make this more in storytelling? How can you make this more consumable? That's where EasyA comes in and also provides valuable feedback, like, that workflow doesn't really work. Maybe you need to tweak this thing, this other thing. So going back to the technology matters, the documentation matters, but also the way you consume all of it. It's really, really important, Solomon.
I want to ask Camilo just briefly, because I know Camilo, I asked you when I went down to PyCon like a month ago what the response was like, and you said something interesting, and I think that it alludes to kind of we're living in crypto land and distributed ledger and blockchain land, and a lot of players, either A, fake it till they make it, or B, just fake it, and then some ecosystems are building real things. And you said something interesting, Camilo, at PyCon this year, because I asked them, like, what's been the response like this year? Is there any difference compared to last year? And it's a testament to how important boots on the ground are, because you told me, you're like, the second year was a lot different than the first year, because we had even a lot more people that were there the first year that didn't necessarily want to engage with us. And, you're starting to kind of chip away at that iceberg. and break through. Can you maybe just mention what the experience was like briefly, and then I'll lead in with Dom here.
Yeah, for sure. So PyCon is always an incredible experience because we start interacting with the traditional developers, and don't get me wrong, the Web2 developers, and for them, blockchain still is something super abstract. They don't understand the full spectrum of opportunities, and usually, as we know, with the new trend of AI, they are looking for data integrity, for traceability, for security, and they don't want to overcomplicate all the solutions. So when we present them AlgoKit utils, and all the tools that we have in place right now for them, they say, okay, so I can use blockchain as a library, and we told them for sure, you don't need to start everything from scratch. And maybe I want to do an analogy. I came from a electronic engineering background, and in my time, Arduino appeared. So you can start building a lot of things using an Arduino. But before that, you need to set up your full board, you need to do a lot of things. Right now, with AlgoKit and the tooling that we have for developers, it's like having an Arduino for blockchain. You don't need to start from zero. You can use that platform, you can start building on top. And the most important part is to offer early wins for the developers. They don't want to spend 3 weeks trying to set up everything, and then they struggle with an error and they say, oh my goodness, blockchain is not for me. I don't have enough knowledge to be able to start building in this ecosystem. And as Victor mentioned, we realize in our Web3 masterclasses that right now there is a lot of builders, a lot of entrepreneurs that they saw the opportunity to start working with AI for creating proof of concepts. So the time to market is super important. You need to spend a lot of money hiring a developer. For sure, you will need to do that in some point, but in early stage, you can test, you can get a lot of feedback, and you can build everything with AlgoKit AI, and you can have your proof of concept. So during PyCon, we showed the Python developers these opportunities, and they said, I want to take a look. And as you know, we were doing some demos, and they start seeing blockchain, something more close to them, and they will say, please let me know what are the most important use cases. Because usually at the same time, we just have the relation between blockchain and crypto, blah, 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 as we already know. But once you realize that there are a lot of interesting use cases, that they are getting traction, they have a product market fit, and they are going outside of the traditional bubble of payments, they say, okay, please, I want to learn more. But yeah, that is like the summary of what we learned during PyCon this year.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because you know, a lot of the real world entities out there in the wild, certainly a lot of them at PyCon, you know, it really kind of about solving pain points within, you know, some of these traditional industries, some of these traditional workflows. And from the AI standpoint, just adding that kind of data provenance and authenticity that kind of goes back at any point in time that you kind of want, where maybe there are already AI solutions out there deployed, or solutions deployed out there in traditional industry, but you know, blockchain and distributed ledger then becomes a valuable tool to kind of you know, add an additional layer of authentication or an additional layer of, you know, provenance, especially with we don't even have necessarily regulations around a lot of the AI stuff. And I think that blockchain and distributed ledger in a way is almost going to, you know, kind of quasi be mandated for use in certain regards, which I think is interesting. I want to expand it out and get back to you here, Dom, real quick. And, you know, you guys are like globetrotters. So you're all across the board, and I always see you guys kind of everywhere. I'm really interested to I think one of the pain points that, if you look across the board and like a lot of the hackathons that have occurred throughout, you know, the blockchain landscape, is you kind of have developers kind of moving back and forth in certain regards. And then I always wonder what happens to within these ecosystems to retain talent. Like, I know that a hackathon happens and maybe there's a really cool use case, but I know that you guys have made probably a lot of introductions into different entities that help to kind of continue that path for builders. And I think it's a really interesting and important story. So Dom, if you could maybe talk about the networking aspect, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a great point. I mean, for us, you know, a big goal is to not only get the projects launching at the hackathons and driving a huge amount of excitement at the actual event itself, but actually get those projects continuously building. And so there are really a couple of different avenues that we actually work together with those teams that launch at the hackathons to pursue. So the first one is, of course, connecting them up with grant teams of the different ecosystems we work with. So, for example, a great example is this weekend we had the massive hackathon together with Ripple, and now those 50 teams that actually launched are going to be in contact with the grants teams so that they can continue getting that funding they need to progress to the next level, and then eventually raise from VCs and investors. Initially angels, and then further, seed investments and Series A, etc. And that approach has been hugely successful for us because we've, like Phil said in the very beginning of this interview, now have an ecosystem valued at over $3 billion. So super impressive projects that have come out. We had a project today actually that just pitched that came out of a prior EasyA hackathon, continued building, and now it's raising from VCs, etc., and just presented on stage at Apex today, building something game-changing in the field of payments. And obviously, this is what we're going to be working together with Algorand on doing as well. So we're going to be getting our massive community of developers, launching at the hackathons, connecting them up internally at Algorand with the grants teams, and facilitating introductions with the VCs. I mean, we've had so many cool projects out of the EasyA ecosystem in the last couple of years that have been funded by, early stage accelerators like Y Combinator, the one that's backed Airbnb, and a ton of other really cool, massive companies. And then also, other companies backed by A16Z, Crypto, Founders Fund, you name it, sort of the best VCs that back the biggest companies in the world. And that's what we're going to be doing together with Algorand. So very excited to continue making those introductions. And I think, like what you're saying at the beginning, it's not a, winner takes all field yet. People have a lot of different opportunities to pursue different blockchains and even launch across multiple blockchains. So, whenever we launch and integrate a new partner, I think, the whole EasyA ecosystem actually gets stronger, and every new partner actually in turn also becomes stronger because there's so many more opportunities that people can explore. And a lot of projects we're seeing actually going multi-chain these days. So yeah, just a really exciting time. And I think, for all of the top tier partners that we work with, there's still so much growth ahead, and we're excited to pursue that.
I want to ask Phil a question, and this isn't, I'm interested when I look at a platform like what you guys have built with EasyA, and certainly really exciting for the Algorand ecosystem. I think sometimes, and I forget who said it during this call, and again, for those watching right now, I do apologize for the buffering issues. This is the first time this has happened. We'll definitely bring these guys back on. But whoever said it kind of earlier on in this interview, sometimes we don't zoom out and kind of look at the forest for the trees. And I think it's really interesting because I've had the opportunity to interview so many enterprises recently, and if not enterprises, kind of solutions integrators, whether it's, PwC or Deloitte or Boston Consulting Group and BCGX. And they say very similar things about enterprise or even institutional adoption. And I'll kind of go in this direction for a second here, is that they all kind of understand blockchain at this point in time. It's more about solving pain points. And a lot of them kind of have this problem where they might not necessarily know where to start. So I think from EasyA's standpoint, it's really interesting that you guys have built a platform where we essentially have, tens of millions of developers that still aren't in this space. And you guys have this platform where you have over 1 million builders on the platform, and you're able to kind of look at what the builders are doing, look at the different skill levels. I think you guys are going to be in a really interesting position. I'm just making an assumption here. A really interesting position, potentially even to onboard enterprise and institutions or whoever it may be that needs a solution that's Web3 based. And then being like, hey, we have all of this real world data from builders using our application. And we have all this real world knowledge about the networks that are kind of leading the charge throughout the world. This solution might make sense, and here's a couple of builders, or here's a project that has overlap. Like, have you guys thought in that direction about what you guys actually are gathering kind of at the platform level for potentially serving as kind of that middleware layer for solutions integration, maybe advisory, stuff like that, Phil?
You're absolutely right. And I have to give credit to Victor for saying to see the woods from the trees. It's so important. Absolutely. we've actually already seen and started to see a lot of people who came in. Originally, EasyA was built as an app for developers, right? It's very focused on builders. It is very focused on getting developers up to speed so that they can actually build and launch their hackathons. But interestingly enough, somewhere along the way, I guess word started to spread. Developers started to share it with their friends who weren't even necessarily developers. And so what we had was a lot of people who were excited, who wanted to learn more about these blockchains, and actually came. So the first few modules, as you mentioned, Solomon, they are really focused on the story, the inspiration element, and that's what we knew developers had to get and had to understand before they really committed to a particular blockchain. And it turned out that actually users loved that too. So we have a lot of people who are in traditional finance and TradFi who actually use the EasyA app to learn about what's actually going on. And part of that as well, the second strand of that is that with our background, my prior life as an attorney, before co-founding EasyA and coming back into tech, and Dom's background working at Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Blackstone, there's a lot of people in our network who I guess organically found out because we were building EasyA about what blockchains can do. And so there's a lot that's actually going on right now. And we've been inside these institutions who have invited us because they see us as being these experts who can bridge the gap between TradFi and also Web3 to give them sort of the inside scoop on what is going on in blockchain. So that is something which you make a great point we're actually doing right now. And so from the EasyA side, they're like, what are you seeing adoption? Where are you seeing adoption happening right now? And we can see that. We have all the data. We also have all the data on where users are and where users go afterwards, right? So which countries actually have the best developers for launching startups, for example. So all those things, you're right, that data is absolutely invaluable. And we're already actually in conversations with other institutional players who are inviting us inside to get that insight from us.
That's awesome. No, and I thought that had to be the case because at the end of the day, like, it's really powerful to kind of have data around who's developing, what they're developing, what networks kind of make sense, what use cases are coming out of certain networks, what networks excel at certain use cases, where there might be overlap between different networks to kind of bridge the gap. I think it's really fascinating. I think I'm going to kind of do round robin here, Victor, and we can do kind of a quasi recap as well as like what you're excited about for the future. And again, I'll preface by saying we're definitely going to bring the EasyA team back on again as integration rolls out here with non-buffering issues. but Victor, what are you excited about for the future? And can you maybe just recap what we're kind of looking at here with the integration? It's awesome.
So first and foremost, I'm very excited about the new way of looking at things that EasyA is going to bring to us and to explain the story and to make people use Algorand in a very user-friendly way. That's, I think, the thing that I'm most excited about. I'm also very curious to see what kind of content they are going to deliver on top of, the existing materials that we provided, because I'm genuinely excited on what they do. I might take the course myself also, as a guinea pig as soon as it's alive, and also will increase my score during in ACA. Why not? Yeah, is it cheating? Who knows? So that's something I am very, very excited. I am also very excited about what people can build out of it. As Phil mentioned, we have this upcoming hackathon, and hackathons, for whatever reason, since I started in IT back in the day, I don't want to say how many years, it's something that I'm always very excited because, I'm so obsessed of the technology, as we explained before, but I'm always curious what other people have in mind when it comes into, I have this idea, how can I make it happen? And during the hackathons, no matter what hackathon we're talking about, there's always new ideas. And even when we try to explore the same concept, whether this is related to finance or to medical implementations or something like that, there's always this new approach. There's this always new angle. There's this always new way of doing things that always makes me very, very excited. During the masterclass that we discussed a bunch of times, they do a pitch competition. And I was watching some of the ideas people were having during the pitch competition. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is such a good idea. I wish I had this idea. So I also get a lot of inspiration. And, The other advantage and one of the things I'm also very excited is all these people that they've been playing with other L1s and other L2s, and they're always at the edge of the curve. They are always willing to learn new technologies. I'm also curious what the feedback of these people is going to be. Like, I don't know, maybe people who are sick of paying a lot of fees for making a transaction, or waiting 15 minutes for a transaction to complete, or things like that, which are like out of the box in Algorand. I'm curious to see if they really see the value here, or what they want, and that's something that I'm very bullish. To be honest, Solomon, I'm very, very bullish. So as a recap, I'm super excited about this partnership. I'm super excited on what's the outcome, and I'm super excited what the upcoming hackathon is going to be.
That's awesome. I remember seeing a video from the EasyA team in one of their hackathons. This was probably like a year and a half ago. Somebody had innovated a way to I want to say it was like minting an NFT through sound. And I was like, that's like the craziest thing that I've seen. And I'm sure that you guys kind of have these from Phil and Dom, from your standpoint, as Victor was kind of alluding to, these kind of, oh my God moments, like whether it's something that's just crazy cool and innovative, or whether it's something I had to judge. I've done like maybe 2 hackathons from like a judging standpoint. And the ones that I always really like are like the use cases that are so simple and common sense. That just kind of makes sense in everyday life. And like, they're like literally the most simple use cases you can think of, but I'm sure Dom and Phil run into that stuff on a consistent basis. Camilo, I would love if you could maybe give us forward-looking statement and closing thoughts, what you're excited about as well, whether it be, the hackathon, the integration, Algorand, wherever you want to take it.
Perfect. So I used to be entrepreneur, and also this is something for the developers. You try to reinvent the wheel. You try to build the most complete solution that is possible in this ecosystem. But maybe you can start for something simple. You can solve a basic pain point, and we in Algorand offer you all the tooling to be able to build that MVP. Then is the new challenge for you, that is finding the product market fit. You need to go outside, you need to start interacting with clients, with possible users, get feedback, iterate your product, and don't fall in love with your solution, because that is the main problem that we have in Web3, that we are super technical, we are planning to build the most perfect product in the industry, and we spend $1 million building that. The day that we launch the product, no one is willing to use this. And I remember the Silicon Valley series, that they built a perfect product, they share the product just with developers, but the normal users, they are expecting something different. So thanks to EasyA and the approach that they have to showcase a different picture, a different scope of opportunities for the developers, for sure we will see the results that we are expecting. And maybe, Sarah, you can share us a bit our approach also in the Web3 master classes, because our idea is to complement and create the full journey. So you can participate in the EasyA programs, then you can join us in our Web3 master classes. And at the end, we have the startup challenges to help you to get traction, to build a project that can have a really market opportunity. So that should be the new way to approach, because we need more sustainable projects, and we need to start looking and supporting the promising ones. So Sarah, maybe you can mention a bit about our approach.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Camilo. So, hey everyone, Sarah Jane here. Just before I get to the main point, I've been in the Web3 space for a good few years, and I'm especially passionate about helping new builders, both technical and non-technical, getting started in this space. So I've been very happy to be in the Algorand ecosystem for the past 4 years, being part of the Algo fam. And one point I'd like to make is every single person listening live or to the recording of this interview, if you're curious and motivated, you belong here. We've built programs at the Algorand Foundation now to help you go from idea to impact, no matter your starting point or background, whether it's technical or not. I mean, look at Phil and Dom. They have completely different backgrounds, and they're just doing groundbreaking stuff at EasyA. So like our Web3 masterclasses, as Victor and Camilo has pointed out, it's a great way to get started, even if you don't know anything about blockchain. The very first session that we do, we don't even mention Algorand per se. We just get into what what blockchain is as a whole, and why it's a good idea to build on that type of infrastructure. And now that we're integrating with EasyA, I'm very excited to have more accessibility, content, and good vibes. And like Victor, I will definitely be taking the course myself and trying out EasyA for the first time. So I'm super excited about that. And lastly, on the Web3 Masterclasses point, we will be actually doing a new cohort in July. So anyone who's listening now, get ready for that. And from going from EasyA or from masterclasses or vice versa, we'll take you into our funnel where you'll get lots of opportunities for like our pitch competitions, our startup challenges, going into our accelerator programs, and going from there and meeting the people you need to meet to boost your project, your idea, and really take it somewhere. So thank you so much for having me on as well, Solomon.
Yeah, Sarah, no, I appreciate it. And what's really interesting kind of in that vein too is, I kind of went down the rabbit hole as far as the power of what, the EasyA platform represents and how that could kind of serve as a networking tool and all sorts of different things. But what to take that even a step further, I think what you guys were both kind of just mentioning, Sarah and Camilla, was kind of like this feedback loop where, you have the EasyA experience, you have the masterclass experience, you have these accelerators, everything kind of ties in together. What I think is really interesting from the EasyA standpoint is that's going to enable the Algorand ecosystem, the Algorand Foundation, whoever it may be, to have this kind of new data set of what people are engaging with, what the response was around it, which I would expect, and I'm not saying this definitively, I would expect the data that you capture from the EasyA integration to kind of have cascade effects into the masterclasses and into all sorts of different things to, because more data and more meaningful data is really powerful. So I'm kind of excited in that regard too. And am I totally off base there, Sarah, or do you kind of see that potentially going in the same way maybe?
No, I 100% agree. I think it's just about figuring out as a builder yourself, whether you're solo or a team, where you are, and then it's up to us to help you on that funnel and put you where you can grow exponentially. Or perhaps also, if it's your first startup and you go through a process and you hit a wall and for some reason it breaks down, that shouldn't be your last try. Everybody goes through multiple fails before they succeed. And if you're not failing, perhaps you're not succeeding is something that I hear a lot of the time. So our programs are still there for you. So it doesn't matter if you've done it once or twice, you can keep going at it and coming at different ideas. And actually that might benefit you a lot because you will gain trust inside of these foundations or continued networking, and that can give you better opportunities as you continue forward as well.
I think and I'm going to get to you, Dom and Phil, as you ramp us down here, but I think to Camilla's point was really good, where we do see this throughout crypto and blockchain, which I'm sure is the same way with any newer technology. You have builders kind of put all of this time into like this one thing, and then they launch this one thing, and then it's very hard to kind of pivot. And I also kind of like the discussions around like, let's get into like kind of the infrastructure value. Like, what's the value of like leveraging these networks themselves, not just an underlying crypto asset, but the actual network, the technology that where does it solve pain points out there in the real world? Where does it create new business models? I think that's going to be really fascinating to watch. And I think all the initiatives like this, EasyA integration, really figuring out what's going on at the builder level, making different connections with different entities out there in the wild, and then following it back up with the programs that you guys are running, the master classes, everything else. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. And the hackathon is going to be really cool to watch, because I'm interested in seeing, because I know that the EasyA team, I've seen these guys out in the wild, and they are like as boots on the ground as you can get. And I think that that's so important, because we see a lot of Web3 like feigning to be boots on the ground and pretending like they kind of care and stuff. But these guys are out there. I mean, just look at their Twitter accounts and you'll find it. But Dom, I'd love if you could ramp us down here, and then I'll move to Phil, and then we'll close out. What are you excited about for the future, whether it be EasyA, the Algorand integration, the broader space? And thank you guys so much for bearing with the buffering.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and thanks everyone who's tuned in live and shared their thoughts as well. So I think, from my perspective, I think what we're really excited about when we partner with new ecosystems is really that huge new wave of mass adoption, essentially. So really getting the flywheel spun up, really showing people the utility of the different partners we work with. In this case, of course, Algorand, both through the app online, but then also in person. So the hackathons that we host are not just events that a couple hundred people show up to, which is obviously a lot, purely to build on that particular chain like Algorand. But actually, they're viewed by millions more online. So that's really cool. And they can see exactly what's being built. They can see, for example, what kind of projects are coming to life on the different blockchains. And if you want a great example, just scroll through our Twitter feed right now, and you can see all of the incredible projects that came out of our hackathon this weekend. And that's really spurring on a lot of bullish momentum in the different ecosystems that we work with. So, right up there, you see some of the winners literally from our hackathon this weekend presenting on the main stage at a conference, Apex out here in Singapore, and just showcasing what they built. And that really is, I think, what's the secret sauce of EasyA. It's, inspiring builders to build on these different amazing pieces of tech, and then actually going out there, showing the world what they built so that people really understand the power of the tech. It's not just about, keeping the builders silent, tucked away, behind the computers. It's really about giving them a platform to showcase their work. And then in turn, those projects then succeed. Tom right there started at an EasyA hackathon, and now he's on stage, presenting what he built. And months later, he's now raising money from VCs. So this is really long-lasting impact, long-lasting results that then trickle down to the blockchain itself, of course, and then to the wider audience who is watching this amazing spectacle unfold. So for us, tons to be excited about. I think tons for the Algorand community to be excited about as well. It's really time that we show the world what's really possible on Algorand.
Awesome. I think to your point too, Dom, and I'm glad that you brought it up. Like, you guys do such an amazing job, and I wish we would see a lot more of this throughout, kind of the blockchain landscape, where you have outlets that will, not talk about things unless they're A, polarizing, or kind of even B, at like the network level. And what I think you guys do a really good job of is to take that a step further, which I think is massively important. And that's actually like you mentioned, providing a platform to the builders, providing a platform to showcase what is really going on these networks, like that, isn't just at kind of the layer one level. It's at like the, the builder level kind of underneath it, which I think is just amazing. And kudos to you guys for doing that. It's not easy to do. Trust me, I understand. But Phil, I would also like to hear some closing thoughts from you, what you're excited about for the future with the Algorand integration, EasyA in general. I know you guys are traveling all across the board, or just the broader blockchain landscape. And yeah, appreciate you joining today.
Yeah, well, thank you again for having us on. I think one of the things that I'm really excited about, I mean, there's so much really, where to start. With regards to Algorand, I think the key thing is that there's so much that has happened over the past couple of years. I mean, I mentioned at the beginning that when we first hosted our first ever Algorand track at Harvard, where we had some of the smartest builders in the world come to Algorand and use Teal. There's so much that happened since then, but I think that a lot of developers and even the community at large maybe knows the Algorand that was there when it was really, not quite in its infancy, but it was at a completely different phase right there, right? And flash forward a couple of years, the developer tooling that I have seen myself has advanced so much that it is almost like, it's a completely different developer experience, not almost like. And so that's what I'm really, really excited about showcasing to developers. The second thing I'm really excited about is for more people to learn about the story. Victor touched on it earlier. Algorand is a different network. It has a different founding story. The founder is different as well, obviously, but also a different type of founder, right? Who takes a different approach to it. So I'm excited to tell that story. And thirdly, just more broadly, I'm extremely, extremely excited about the EasyA community. We have a couple of things that we've touched on, both on stage here at the conference here in Singapore, Apex, at Consensus as well, just a couple of weeks ago in Toronto. There's so much that we are building ourselves in order to take this to the next level. So really, we touched on how early we are right now. I think, Solomon, you mentioned we are really so early that we're just at the precipice of this huge Cambrian explosion in apps. Some of our community refer to EasyA as being like the app store that actually brings the apps to these blockchains and these partners that we work with. Really, we're going to see the app store really start to get filled with the most incredible applications. And that's because of the way that we are building this app store right now. It's the EasyA app. We also have the EasyA labs, and all this is coming together right now. So there's so much that's happening over the next couple of months. We're still very, very early, even within the EasyA ecosystem itself. 1 million is just the very, very start. 1 million people in our community, developers using the EasyA app. It's just the very, very beginning.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys joining today, and congratulations to the Algorand ecosystem on the integration of EasyA or within EasyA. It's going to be awesome to kind of watch the hackathon. It's going to be awesome to watch the integration within the application. It's going to be awesome to watch the feedback loops that occur within the master classes that the Algorand ecosystem is putting on. If you guys want to check out and learn more about EasyA, EasyA.io. Go on X to at EasyA_app. You can check it out in the App Store, and give Phil and Dom a follow if you want to see like actual, like legitimately crazy boots on the ground, like traveling everywhere, and all the really cool initiatives that these guys are putting on to highlight boaters. At Quack_Phil and at Dom_Quack, and then Algorand.co, and then give the Algorand X account a follow at Algo Foundation. I wanted to say to the audience here, thank you for bearing with the buffering. This is the wildest thing I've ever experienced. But thank you to Victor, Camilo, Dom, Phil, and Sarah. Bear with me for a second here, guys, as I ramp this space down to make sure I get the recordings that hopefully don't have buffering issues. But hang on one sec, guys.